We've entered into a new year, and with that year, we have a bunch of cards that are still expensive. We're going to be going over some cards that are probably not going to get a reprint, and then we're going to be going over some cards that hopefully in 2024 do get a reprint.
You think that there are a lot of reprints, but you'd be surprised how the most powerful cards in Commander just sort of retain a high price. Let's talk about it.
Probably because they're mythic. Thank you to all of our patrons that power the channel through Patreon. Your support means the world to us, and we could give each and every one of you a nice back rub. We would, but sadly we live on the internet, so it's not possible. Big thank you to our sponsor, TCG Player. You're going to see a lot of the information that we show you in this video is going to be over on TCG Player. That's an awesome marketplace that offers a lot of different sellers for you to poke around. Find someone that works for you, find a price that works for you. You can also find a link in the description of the video, which will directly help the channel. Use that link when you buy your singles. It shows TCG Player, hey, you sponsoring Jake and Joel? That's a good thing.
We've got around 25 cards that need reprints. They're all $40 or way more than that. There's a chunk of that list that we don't think is going to get reprinted this year, and that's what we're going to start with. Jake, we just saw Jeweled Lotus last August in Commander Masters.
Right. Jeweled Lotus is a card that we just got 4 different versions of in August, and that's not really even taking into account, you know, the foil version. Probably not going to see a reprint of Jeweled Lotus. It's just going to be one of those cards that's very good. Casual players will want it. Sweaty players will want it. CEDH obviously loves this card. It's just one of those things. It's like, it's just going to be a staple.
It's
and
crazy.
An expensive staple.
This card sort of defies the typical logic that we have, because we just in August got 4 different versions of it, but it still retains that high price. It still has a lot of value built in.
Also, Children of the Apocalypse. This is a card that was printed in Dominaria United in 2022, and it was also one of the concept Praetors that came out of All Will Be One collector packs. However, in those All Will Be One collector packs, it does have the Dominaria United symbol on it. So if you ever see those and it says DMU in the bottom left, you might think it came out of Dominaria United, but it came out of Phyrexia All Will Be One in the beginning of 2023 in February. Now, this is a card that's still in standard. So for me, it's hard to think that, and standard rotation did get longer.
It's not just dominating standard. This card is creeping into so many formats. I'm seeing it as a one of and timeless. I'm telling you, man, the most powerful decks really like this card. 1 of, 4 of, doesn't matter. A lot of decks like to run this thing. I think with the lengthening of standard, that means even more we're not going to see a reprint of this one anytime soon, just because the standard cards, if they're still in print, they're not going to reprint something that's still in print, right? They want you to go buy those packs.
I would think so, in my opinion, if I had to guess. And there's still tons of Dominaria United out there. The problem with Dominaria United is it's kind of a wonky set. You have Shieldred, you have Leyline Binding, you have Timeless Lotus. There's a couple other cards in the set that are good, but a lot of people don't want to open the set because it doesn't really have that stellar of a land cycle, and a lot of the other stuff is just junk. I think there's a Merfolk in there that's pretty good as well.
Yeah, standard card getting a reprint is very unlikely, as is a 2022 card. July 22, we got this in Double Masters 22, a finally sort of reprint of Imperial Seal, but even though there are 3 versions, not counting our foil stuff, this is one that players still like. And while it has come back down to earth, that it's still in the clouds of earth. You know what I'm saying? It's not on the ground.
It could be one of those cards that just gets the mana drain reprint policy, and they just start putting it in everything and they decimate the price and bring it down to 40. It's a long way away from that right now. But it did get 3 versions, not counting foils, in Double Masters 2022. So for me, this seems like something that they probably won't be reprinting. And it's also something that not a lot of players need. There's a lot of players that complain about this card and they just say it's too slow, even though it's super mana efficient. I know CEDH likes the card, but a lot of people in casual Commander, they pass on this one.
Mana drain got as low as like the $20 range, 20 to 25. And we actually called it out here on the channel. You should definitely be subscribed so that you see when we're calling out good prices for good pickups.
Next up, we have Gemstone Caverns. It did get kind of a meaningful reprint in Time Spiral, and that was in, I believe, 2020. Its most recent reprint came in the form of a Lord of the Rings card. Not super meaningful. I do believe those might have been box toppers, so there might be a lot of these out here. You might take that as meaningful, but this card having that mythic price point, that mythic protection, means that it's going to stay expensive unless it gets reprinted again and again. Gemstone Caverns, I would say, because it was just reprinted in Lord of the Rings, they might be putting the brakes on this one anytime soon.
Well, outside of Modern Horizons, we don't have a known major reprint set that is going to be present. And I only say Modern Horizons, which is not a reprint set. It's a forward print set, still high power, but not going to be cards that have existed. However, that's a set that they're going to pump somehow to get a lot of value out of it. And so box toppers, maybe a special guests, maybe there's different versions of how we can get some of these major reprints this year. Jake, Agatha's Soul Cauldron, this card was literally just printed. I see people talking online about, oh, we need a reprint of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And I'm like, keep dreaming, dude, because there's no way. Same thing I feel about Shielded of the Apocalypse. There's just no way we get a reprint of these cards anytime soon.
This card, if you don't know, you have Modern, Pioneer, Legacy, even standard combos popping up with this card. There's so much that you can do with this card. It's just degenerate. Commander players also want it. Wilds of Eldraine, they brought us the Enchanting Tales slot, decimated the price of tons of enchantments, but the set does have a few cards in the base set that are worth some money, and Agatha's Soul Cauldron is one of them. It's just a very good, very combo-y card. People want it. You need multiple copies of it.
I've been watching the price of those Enchanting Tales, little side note, and those cards are starting to recover faster than I'm typically used to a set within a set like that recovering. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, we have a video here on the channel covering a good time to pick those up. Yeah.
Really good cards in there. Great Henge, we have a Commander Masters card here. This just got reprinted in 2023 in August. And then we also have a Party Tree version in Lord of the Rings to add to the supply. So for me, Great Henge, we just got it. We just got a meaningful reprint of it. When you get a mythic,
it showed up twice last year, bro.
In Commander Masters, you can have as many as like 4 rares and or mythics in those just draft packs. Those draft packs are made for Commander. You have a nice spread of cards that you could pull in that set. There's a lot of people that complain about that set, saying that set wasn't really a meaningful reprint because it was so expensive. That said, I have drafted it multiple times. It's a very fun set, and it is packed with a lot of heat.
Yeah, it's just super expensive for everybody to pick up.
Yeah.
Expensive like Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. We got the Multiversal Legend in April of 23, and that was kind of a nice little treat. Little extra Ragavan as a treat. You know, it also had another friend show up into the meta, every meta. Orcish Bowmasters brought Ragavan down a tick or two, but not really a ton. Still useful in a ton of decks, still played in a lot of decks. The most high power formats are still going to want this. I just don't see a good place. Card. Exactly. And I just don't see a good place for it to pop up this year for sure, especially after getting that Multiverse Legend thing last year. Maybe Modern Horizons 3, maybe they just go for broke and they're like, whatever, put this in the special guest.
Yeah, special guest or whatever kind of slot within that set that brings you flashback cards from the past, you know, fun reprints. It's a very good card. Commander loves it as well. It's a card that's arguably like as good as a turn 1 Soul Ring because of just how much value it gets you in it. In certain sweaty formats, you can end up exiling a card from some player's library that could be, in theory, the card that they need to win the game, looking at stuff like Thoracle, that kind of shit. We know how powerful it is. We've talked about it. But yeah, let's talk about the card that kind of knocked it down a peg, and it's Orcish Bowmasters. And this is the card that came out of Lord of the Rings that's probably, you know, as hyped as the One Ring, I would have to say. It just is extremely strong. And it's one of these cards that, because Lord of the Rings was printed right into Modern, Orcish Bowmasters goes right directly into Modern and has been a powerhouse ever since its debut. This card, because it just came out and it did just get its main set in Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, but then it was also printed in the holiday product, which just came out as early as this past November. We just had an additional reprint of this card in November. We are, as of the filming of this, in December, January at this point. I can't see them just reprinting this again.
No, just thank goodness that they printed this with a generic name and generic abilities, because if there was anything tied to Middle Earth that was going to preclude this one from getting reprinted, we would just be screwed, because this is going to be one of the most powerful cards for a very long time. I don't see a format where it's legal not at least considering it, or definitely running it if you're in the colors. It's one that we need a reprint soon. I could see this maybe popping up in Modern Horizons 3 if they have a box topper or special guests section somewhere. It's already legal there, so we'll see. I'm just very happy that, unlike this next card, Orcish Bowmasters can see a reprint wherever they find it the right place to fit. But wow, how are we gonna reprint this card that defined a set, that redefined MTG to the world from a financial point, and now is so tied to that universe beyond? Do they even have permission to print this again? I have no idea. I don't know when we're going to see this again. This card perplexes me.
In this card, same thing. For all of the same reasons as we listed Orcish Bowmasters is why we don't think a reprint is coming anytime soon. For a lot of different reasons Joel is bringing up, he thinks it's probably going to be difficult to reprint again. Maybe there's something that says that they're able to just reprint it. Maybe it becomes some sort of like Universes Beyond thing and they just reskin it into a different card, and we get sort of like a secret layer treatment where we have like the kids from Stranger Things all became their own cards. Right. The stuff from Street Fighter all became its own cards. So maybe this becomes some sort of artifact MTG card.
Prof just actually made a video where he suggested or made a call that we're going to get a Universes Within Masters set at some point in the next few years that reprints Universes Beyond stuff into MTG, like you were just talking about, so that they can get reprints of these very specific cards into the player base. But until then
they'll just use LTR set number. That way they don't even have to write the One Ring on it anywhere. So it'll just have LTR, whatever the One Ring set number is, to help. Yeah, I can see them doing that. But yeah, this is a card that's very good as well. Casual. Sweaty decks want it. There's so much on the card that it can't be ignored. And it's one of those cards that, like you said, has redefined MTG in a lot of ways. It just slots into pretty much anything, it being colorless, and it offers so much value.
All right, those are the ones that we think are unlikely to get reprinted. Jake, let's jump over to our official online store of Jake and Joel Are Magic. Use the pinned comment to go down there and click on the link, and make sure that you go shop at TCG Player and help out our sponsor. Okay, done selling Mana Crypt.
Done
Jake,
selling.
Do you think it's possible that we actually see a Mana Crypt, and how crazy is it that we just kind of got a Mana Crypt and it's still at the very, very top of the list of most expensive commander cards? It's crazy.
It's time. It needs an actual meaningful reprint. And what that means is it can't be in a special guest slot. It needs to be in a set like Commander Masters. That's where I think it could live. Some sort of Masters type set where we're going to get it at a mythic. We know it's going to be mythic. They're not going to make it rare out of nowhere. But we want it at a standard mythic rate, meaning just put it on the regular mythic print sheet for a master set, so that when we're opening boxes, we're just finding base copies of it. We don't need a special red version or purple version or special commissioned art version. Just give us the old thing, reprint it at mythic, so that players that want to play with this card can pick it up at a reasonable price. I would say the special guest slot, even though you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions, you barely see the special guest slot. And when you do, you have to find a mythic, and it has to be the right mythic.
That's right.
It has to be the Mana Crypt. So yeah, dude, this recent LCI printing, I don't even really count that. It didn't even move the needle on Mana Crypt's price. So it's time for a better, more meaningful big reprint of the card. And I do think it could happen in 2024.
Jake, next up we got a weird one. It's Mindbreak Trap. This card, I'm gonna tell you, it's not a $72 card. It's a 4-mana counter spell, kind of, that could be free if you've got 3 or more spells that have come from an opponent this turn. This card gets played in Vintage and Legacy, and the card has only ever been printed one time. Zendikar, right here. 2009 was the last time we saw this card pop up. Currently $67 here for a light play. Your market price is around $72. This is one I feel it in my fingers and I feel it in my bones. We get a reprint of this one. Hello, $5 Mythic.
We talk about Portal 3K cards that are extremely old, and then they get the reprint and they go from like 300 down to 5. It's a very niche card. I'm looking at the moderately played foil down there for $225. It has 1 printing. That's really the takeaway here. Yeah, this one is like a hard sell for me, not financial advice. If I was holding copies of this card, and I might want to look through because I may have a single copy of a Mindbreak Trap.
I've looked through multiple times, dude, because we bought so much during Zendikar, and just for some reason the notebooks I've got, this card did not survive anywhere. But yeah, not financial advice. We probably traded shit like this away for stuff like rampaging Baloths, dude. We probably traded. I mean, I have no idea. This card was probably $1 rare then.
Oh, it was junk, dude. This was like, Mythic. I mean, when you read it, you're like, exile any number of target spells, but it's like the condition is if an opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn. So it can turn off like a Storm player, that kind of thing. There's very good niche uses for this card. It is very, very, very specific. And yeah, Vintage, there's a lot of different stuff that you could do with this card, and the one thing you should do with it is sell it.
Jake, Mox Opal, we have had 5 different prints of this with 6 different variants. We got 2 different variants in Double Masters, our borderless and our standard, but it still holds a price of like $70 to pick up the cheapest version you can.
And we did just get that retro frame version that was printed in Secret Lair, very beautiful,
but not a widely available Secret Lair. Right. This one was hard to get, and you had to buy some other crap that you didn't wanted to get.
You had to pay a lot for that Secret Lair, so that's not nearly a meaningful reprint. Mox Opal's also a card that's extremely good in any sort of Metalcraft type thing. And what do we know about Commander? People love to run a pile of mana rocks, so I would expect to see this in any sort of CEDH deck, right along stuff like Mox Amber, that kind of stuff.
This one's kind of a spiky tournament. You get your 4 of for your artifact deck, or maybe 3 of, and then maybe pick up 1 copy for your commander decks.
I can't believe it's already been so long since Double Masters 2022, but I would say whenever you can reprint this card, just do it. The problem with Dockside Extortionist is it got upshifted from rare to mythic, and that's probably where it's going to live forever.
Upshifted. It was rare in a pre-con, but yeah, it's a mythic nonetheless. $70 is your cheapest copy here. You can get one of these list copies, $67. This card has been printed 2 times and has 5 different variants, with Double Masters 22 having 2 of them, 3 of them including your base copy. So yeah, this one's always going to be in high demand in a ton of different formats. I don't know where this possibly shows up this year, unless, again, like Modern Horizons 3, I think is my only call for any major reprints, other than a crazy special guest, which we've seen doesn't really do jack to the price.
It's just every red commander deck wants it. Full stop. It isn't even a question. Every red deck wants this card. You have some people that want to take it out just to power down decks and power down their pod.
Chalice of the Void. We've got an Invention. We've got Judge Promos. We've got Box Toppers. This is a card that they really like to do special versions of and keep the reprint equity tight to the chest, Jake. Chalice, $54 it's going to run you to pick up that Masters 25 copy right there. Next to that cool art reprint of Lord of the Void. Got to check that out in a different video. But last year, LCI Box Topper, we didn't really see that bump the price too hard. looking at the cheapest copy here, we get a little tick down. 7 prints of this, 7 variants of this. It's just one of those cards, Jake, that hasn't been hit too hard by the variant era, even though we do have 7 different versions of it. You know, the Mirrodin and the Modern Masters and the Masters 25 all look the same, right?
It's a modern card. It's a legacy card, vintage. The reason the price is so high is because the people that do want it, they want 3 or 4 copies or a sideboard. So that's why the price is always expensive on Chalice of the Void.
Do yourself a favor, pick up the art card of Ancient Copper Dragon for 36 cents and call it a day. Just write what it does right on there, slide it in a sleeve. Those can't have the same thickness as an actual sleeve, right? Maybe this isn't actual serious advice. But what is serious advice is, hey, Wizards, reprint this big dumb dragon, because big dumb dragons are fun, and we need this big dumb dragon in particular.
Yeah, this treasure dragon is something that people would really love a reprint of. The only one that I've ever opened, I had to take a bite out of for a patron, which was it kind of broke my heart a little bit. It's the best pull out of Baldur's Gate. And when you get the best pull out of Baldur's Gate, you eat it. Ugh, it's gross.
You at least got to rip
gross.
that thing. You at least got to get a good chunk bitten out of it. Oh,
I'm sorry, chat. It's a very good card. It's the treasure dragon. I don't really know what more to say about it other than it's a treasure-centric dragon in red, which is the correct treasure color and the correct dragon color. So anybody who plays dragons or has an interest in getting the most out of treasure probably wants Ancient Copper Dragon.
Yeah, this only showed up in 2022's.
Look at that chart.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's just like, looks like NVIDIA.
This only showed up in 2022's Commander Legends, not actually a Commander Legends set, Battle for Baldur's Gate instead. But we did, it's firmly printed, firmly landed right in the variant era, bro. 4 different versions of this card between the pre-release and the regular, making that 3rd and 4th slot in just one printing. But yeah, $54 at this point to pick you up the... It's funny. This is the least desirable, Jake. People have decided. You don't like
that. You don't like that. I'm actually fine with this frame. I know
I'm not
you're
saying
not super
I'm not saying
on
it's least desirable because I don't like it. The market has spoken, baby boo. $55, $63. People would rather have the base copy.
I like when you call
than...
me baby boo.
You're welcome. I'll do it as much as you want. Ancient Copper Dragon with the big red splotch behind it. People don't want it.
No, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the big red splotch.
That's good, baby boo.
That's cool for me. So for me, for somebody who's like, yeah, you know, I'll take any version of it. I'm fine with that treatment.
Do you think this one looks good enough to eat?
I would never eat another one of these, ever. The one that I have already eaten, that's enough.
Real quick, we'll swap to this for you because Jake found the dragon that he took a bite out of. Repaired through the most intensive technologies available in our time, right?
I did my best to fix it. For me, it's such a great meme. I never want to forget it. The patron, he goes, nah, dude, that's all you. You keep that card. I was like, okay.
He didn't want your DNA to clone you.
He didn't want it.
This is a weird one. Cover of Darkness. $51 to get you a copy. Look over there on the left. That's actually the only copy. There were French, Spanish, and Italian versions printed into what I think were starter decks, essentially, in 2005. But 2002, Onslaught brought us the only true printing of Cover of Darkness. Comes into play, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type basically can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. For 2 mana, this is an enchantment that a lot of different decks would want, and that's noted in the price and the scarcity. 1 print, Jake, this is just like, when are we gonna see this? I feel like this will be like Oversold Cemetery. Remember how Oversold Cemetery was just, we need it, and then in the course of like 6 months they printed it 18 times?
Yeah, and then it got a bunch of variants. It got printed into one of those master sets. I forget which one, but yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of those cards that just eventually gets lumped in. So it's like, if you have an extra copy of this, or it might be a card that's not even on your radar, so you might want to go through old bulk if you happen to have old bulk, because this card wasn't really something until it was, and now it's a good card. It's something that people like to use. used to do this series called the Commander Sleeper series, and some of the cards from that series actually popped off. I wouldn't even be surprised if this was on our Commander Sleeper series back when we went over Onslaught. Well, we've talked about this card a lot, and it's a combo card, and it's Painter's Servant, and it still hasn't got a reprint, even though we keep complaining about it. Painter's Servant, give us a reprint. Maybe it'll be this year.
Super scarce. $51 for this Shadowmoor version. That's what you're gonna get if you want to buy one right this second for the cheapest cost that you possibly can. Last year we got Judge promo version. That is pretty much a death sentence. That card is about to get a huge reprint. We've got 3 different printings, as you can see here, with 3 different variants. Among those, we got the Invention version. Look, honestly, this is just a card that is scarce. If you combined it with Grindstone, you would get a 2-card combo to wipe out an opponent's library, and they lose when they go to draw next. And that's...
Do yourself a favor, type in Painter's Servant combo MTG in Google and look at all of the different ways that you can use this card, and then you'll realize why it's good.
Yeah.
You don't know why it's good.
It's innocuous, but good.
I don't particularly want it. I think it's a card that could get a reprint soon, but it's a card that's not exactly on my list. It's a card that if I had it, I would be selling it. Is kind of
100%. This is one where I can't wait till the reprint because I get to pick it up. I wanted a 2-card artifact based finisher combo for my Lara Croft deck. It's kind of an artifact strategy, you know, and so having Painter's Servant and Grindstone in there as something that I can target with my search library for artifact stuff would be a good way to finish off, you know, if I just need a let's end this button. So
winning a game is good. Yes. Winning means the game is over, and
we get to do another one or go get a beer.
That's right.
It looks like there are 3 printings of this card, Anointed Procession, but that is a lie. You've got Amonkhet, you've got the pre-release card from Amonkhet, the little date stamped on there. And then you've got a list reprint, which hasn't really done that much. We call this a 1 printing card. I don't care too much about the list. We're just going to call it 1 printing because it showed up in Amonkhet in 2017. It is worth noting that at time of shooting this, the same day we're shooting this actually, a Secret Lair Commander Precon was announced. Cats and Dogs, Raining Cats and Dogs. And one of the 2 cards that they teased in that set was an Anointed Procession. But Jake, I have to imagine, we haven't seen the price of that Commander Precon yet, but 100 and 150 is what we've seen so far. Cats and Dogs, big seller, let's charge more. Do you think this is going to do anything for the price, or do you think it's just going to create like a ultra rare and or ultra expensive version of it that's got a dog on it? That right? That's what's happening.
I think that the Commander deck will probably be minimum 150. I don't you know, it's kind of like, why would my landlord make my price make the price of my apartment cheaper, right? There's no reason for them to go back to 100. They're just going to keep it at 150. And yes, I do believe that alongside Rin and Siri and a
not
few
your
other
apartment, the deck. The way you worded that sounded like you're paying 150 for your apartment a month. That would be really good.
Oh God, no. That would be fantastic. It would be like I'm living in the 1800s, right?
No. 1800s apartments were $150
a month
minimum, dude.
Bro,
there's no running water. That shit was cheap.
Just go back to the 1800s. Trust me.
You got it.
All right. So Anointed Procession, it's going to come out in a dog and cat deck. Some of these cards are going to have, if you flip them over, different art on each of their sides.
Yeah, reversible cards.
Reversible cards. I don't know if it's going to be the whole deck that does that. I don't know if Anointed Procession is going to do that. Possibly. But it is going to be a card that, because it has the cat and dog factor, it's probably going to have a little bit of a desirable effect. People that just like dogs are going to be like, well, I got to get the dog one.
Dude, Anointed Procession. Yep, same as true of cats. Anointed Procession dodged the entirety of Enchanting Tales. They've got plans for this one. That's all I can really surmise, is that this is going to drive some product down the road. And that's why they're waiting on this one, because tokens, that's been getting a ton of love for years now, 2 or 3 years.
It's like a white doubling season.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Just a premium enchant. Yeah.
We just need it. We need it. Force of Negation. 2 printings and 6 versions among your bases and your borderlesses and your retros. Originally printed in Modern Horizons, Jake, and that was just in 2019. All right. Then reprinted in Double Masters 22, where we got your base, you got your foil etched, and you got your borderless. Then we also got our Modern Horizons 1 version with the retro frame that actually came out in Modern Horizons 2, didn't it? Am I remembering that incorrectly?
The foiling of these cards were weird. Yes, this was a flashback kind of moment where
Right.
in Modern Horizons 2, they reprinted cards from Modern Horizons 1 and they appeared in a specific slot in those collector packs.
Yeah.
They didn't appear in the normal draft boosters, but you could find them in collector packs.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
You've got this newer card, 2 printings, really kind of 3, but you've got 5 variants outside of your main art and frame. And so with this one being at $43 and a Horizons set in the year's release schedule, this is one I wouldn't be touching right now.
Yeah, it's a very specific card. It's a more sweaty card, like we've already gone over. Like Force of Will, Force of Negation, you pitch a card and you can play it without paying its mana cost. So
sweaty.
It's very specific, but a lot of commander decks don't really want that effect. And more commander decks, because of the card disadvantage, you really need to be playing it in a pretty sweaty situation in order to want that effect. Now, certain modern decks do want this card. Remember, this is modern legal. And so the decks that do want this, that are for constructed, are going to want multiple copies.
Another Horizons card here, Jake. Urza's Saga, our power land that can go get our cheap artifacts right onto the battlefield. $40 for the list version. It's like $41 for the Modern Horizons 2 showcase sketch version, so not a ton of difference, but some people really don't like the sketch stuff. Some people really do. Modern Horizons 2 in 2021 is when we got this card. Been a few years now. 3 years is normally when a good window opens for, okay, this card is now potentially going to pop up as a reprint. But with one real printing with 2 or 3 or 4 variants depending on list, and Modern Horizons 2 base and showcase and foils, not a lot of versions, only one reprint, but still a powerhouse card that the price just continues to rise and will until it reprints.
Yeah, the list version, like we said, we don't even really count that as a reprint. So this card has been reprinted in Modern Horizons 2. You got the normal version and you got the sketch version, and that's pretty much it. You have the foil versions of each of those. It's a card that Commander does want, and Commander, you need only a single copy of it, but it's also a card that is a multi-format powerhouse, because there are decks in Modern that want 3 or 4 versions of this card just because of everything that you get from it. Remember, it's a saga, and we've talked a lot about sagas on this channel. Just you get so much residual value after you play them that it's like, yeah, play this, and then by the time you get to that 3rd phase, you're going to go search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1. There's a lot of crazy stuff that you can do. So Urza Saga ends up being like a toolbox card because you can go search for specific things, and that's what makes it so powerful. Eye of Ugin. This probably took off because we got an Eldrazi deck. We got that colorless deck that came out, and so Eye of Ugin probably finally had a reason other than Eldrazi decks to be played. It's a specific card. It's very niche, but for the decks that want it, they want it.
They really want it. We have got a $40 Modern Masters 2015 version. That's the market price now. That is the lowest on this card. See a little spike there, Jake? Wonder if that's what happened, what you were talking about when that happened.
I wonder what happened in June of 2023. What set must have come out then?
Or been announced, yeah. We got a Judge Gift version there in 2020. We got a Zendikar Expedition in 16. We got Modern Masters 15. And then we got the OG World Wake in 2010. 4 prints, 4 variants. It's got the Judge promo Kiss of Death, but that has been now 4 years since we saw that. So this is the kind of card, I think, Jake, I'm more with your strategy of putting this into a secret layer on this card than I am Anywhere else this could be possibly popping up. Right. You throw a couple cards that make Eldrazi Scions in there, maybe even make an Eldrazi Scion token. Throw this in there, slap Galaxy Foil on it, call it good.
Go ham, dude. Eye of Ugin, a Void Winnower, and then 2 things that don't even matter.
Yeah, and then 2 cards that matter not, and call it.
Yeah, do Hand of Emrakul. Do Hand of Emrakul and Artisan of Kozilek.
I was gonna say another useful one, so let's just go Artisan and call it good.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
why not?
That's where I could see this popping up for sure. Jake, this card was initially printed in Urza's Saga. The card is $40. It says cast an enchantment, draw a card, and it's 2 mana for a Shroud creature that does it. 3 printings, 3 variants. Wow. Is a reprint of this one gonna kill it? But I will point out, Urza's Saga, this was a rare. You can see it kind of dropping there. It's trending down a little bit, just trying to catch back up. However, they did upshift it to Mythic for Eternal Masters. So it's possible that they get a little screwy with a reprint on this one. I know that Enchantress stuff is always on their mind, so this one, like Anointed, still around that $40 price point. Maybe going to be a secret layer. Definitely going to take a price hit when it gets reprinted.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great card, though. Has Shroud. Gotta love it.
Shout out Shroud. Can't be the target of spells or abilities. Shout out Shroud. Straight up.
And then we go back to Commander Legends with a card that shook all of us when we saw it. It's Commander's Plate. For 1 mana, we're getting a lot of effects here. It did just get a reprint in the Secret Lair version, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this card is very strong. It's extremely good. People that want to protect their commander, seems like a shoe-in to those decks. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. Meaning, if your commander is mono white, your commander has protection from the other 4 colors of Magic. Oh my goodness.
It's gonna put you to the test there. $38 is gonna get you that Commander Legends version that Jake was talking about. This one's up to $64 market. This Secret Lair Angels, this is not a true reprint, y'all. This has got a special art version in that Secret Lair, one-time buy, never gonna be reprinted. So this one is going to kind of set the price for the high end right now until we get a potential reprint with a more special, more serialized, maybe high-end version of Commander's Plate. But also reprinted in Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. So they've been using this to push premium precons so far. Kind of interesting that it's popped up in both. But with 3 printings here, if we want to call the list, and 2 Secret Lair versions printing, then we can count them. But yeah, this is one I'd love to see it pop up as a special guest. It's a tough one. We've talked about these before. The Oracle text says Commander in it, and so there are only certain products where this can pop up. So this is one I would not be purchasing right now unless for some reason you just really need it.
If you are buying any Magic the Gathering cards, hopefully you aren't buying anything that's on this list, because we are hoping that it gets reprinted. However, if you are buying something that isn't on this list, maybe you have a card that you want to pick up, then use TCG Player. We've been using the site the entire time to show you these cards. That is the sponsor of Jake and Joel Are Magic. And if you've made it this far in the video, please use the link down in the description of the video. It goes a long way.
Let us know in the comments if there is a card that you think should be on our do not buy list, that we need a reprint for it. Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to chat with you.